The gallery has no permanent address. This is not unusual for a gallery of its kind. Permanent addresses require a certain confidence about where you will be tomorrow, and the gallery of discarded doodles has never been particularly confident about that. It appears where it appears, in the narrow gap between two buildings that you could have sworn was a wall yesterday, in the lower level of a car park on a Tuesday night, once, memorably, in the space behind the cereal aisle of a large supermarket in Ghent, though that visit was brief and the supermarket's management was not informed. What it always has is a door. The door is not always the same door. It has been a fire exit and a wooden gate and a section of corrugated metal sheeting with a handle attached by someone who knew what they were doing. And once, it was a very large cat flap, which created logistical difficulties that the gallery's curator, a compact and businesslike woman named Edith Voss, still prefers not to discuss. But there is always a door, and the door is always unlocked, and on the other side of the door is always the same long, low room, with its pale walls and its particular smell of pencil shavings and old paper and something faintly electrical, the way the air smells just before rain. Tonight, the door is a plain grey door in a plain grey wall on a street that most people walk down without looking at it very carefully. You are looking at it carefully. The door is slightly ajar. Edith Voss is inside, doing the rounds. She does this every evening before the gallery opens, walks the full length of the room in her flat shoes, hands behind her back, stopping in front of each piece with the brief, assessing attention of someone who has looked at a great many things and developed strong opinions about all of them. She does not carry a clipboard. She tried a clipboard once and found it made her feel like an inspector rather than a curator, which are two jobs that look similar from a distance but are completely different up close. She is a small woman of 60-something, with grey hair cut in a way that suggests she found a style she liked in 1987 and saw no compelling reason to revise it. Her cardigan is the colour of a rainy afternoon. Her reading glasses hang from a cord around her neck, and she puts them on and takes them off so frequently in the course of an evening that the cord has become more of an efficiency measure than an affectation. She stops in front of a piece near the entrance, studies it. It is a drawing of a horse executed in blue ballpoint on the back of a gas bill, circa 2019. The horse has 5 legs, though the 5th appears to be more of a suggestion than a commitment, a line that started with one intention and ended with another, as lines often do. The horse is also, for reasons the original artist apparently didn't feel needed explaining, wearing a small hat. Edith puts her glasses on, takes them off. "Still good," she says, to no one, and moves on. "Come inside." The door swings open easily, without sound, the way doors open in places that want you to enter. The air that comes through is warm and still, and carries that smell, pencil shavings, old paper, the almost rain electricity of a room full of things that were made by people who were thinking about something else entirely. The floor is pale wood, slightly uneven, the kind of floor that registers footsteps with a soft, irregular commentary, but not loudly enough to be disruptive. Your footsteps, as you enter, are quiet. The floor notes them without making a fuss. The room is long and low-ceilinged and lit by a series of small spotlights mounted on a track above, each one directed at a different piece on the walls. The light between the spotlights is dim, a warm grey, the colour of late evening through frosted glass, and the pieces themselves are islands of slightly brighter illumination, each one its own small world. The effect is of walking through a series of glows rather than a continuous lit space. Each glow, a thing someone drew without meaning to keep. The walls are white or were once white and have become over time the particular off-white of a wall that has absorbed a lot of ambient thought. There is a bench in the center of the room, just one. It is a long, plain wooden bench of the sort you find in galleries and train stations and old churches. A bench that communicates through its plainness and its solid construction that it is there to be sat on and that it has no additional agenda. Sit down if you like. There is no obligation, but the bench is good and the view from it takes in most of the room at once, and sitting is, all things considered, a reasonable thing to be doing right now. Let your body settle into the bench. The wood is solid beneath you, not soft. It doesn't pretend to be something it isn't, but smooth with use, worn to a surface that has lost all its roughness, that the hands rest against without any of the slight resistance of new wood. It is a bench that has been sat on by a great many people in the process of looking at things, and it has developed over time the specific quality of furniture that has been used for its intended purpose. It knows what it's for. Your hands in your lap or at your sides, your feet on the pale wood floor. The room is quiet, not silent. There is always some small sound in a room where things made by human hands are present. A faint settling of the building around you, the almost inaudible flicker of the spotlights doing their work, and from somewhere near the far end of the gallery, the sound of Edith Voss's flat shoes moving in their considered, unhurried way across the floor. A few steps, a pause, a few more steps, the small sound of her glasses going on and coming off. These sounds are undemanding. They do not require anything of you. They are simply the sounds of the room being what it is, and you are in the room, and that is the entire situation. The first piece on the left wall is a drawing of a building. It is not an important building, or if it is, the importance doesn't show. It appears to be a house, rectangular, with windows that are not quite level, a door slightly off-center, a chimney from which the artist has drawn 3 confident spirals of smoke, despite, apparently, running out of confidence part-way through the 3rd spiral, which trails off into a line and then a dot and then nothing. The house is drawn on a yellow post-it note in black felt tip. The post-it has been mounted in a plain white frame slightly too large for it, which gives it a great deal of what curators call negative space, and what everyone else calls empty room around the edges. The empty room is not wasted. The house sits in the center of all that white space, like something that has been found rather than made. The way a particular stone looks when you take it out of a river and set it on a white surface, suddenly more itself than it was when it was surrounded by other stones and moving water. The post-it is small and the frame is large, and the drawing in its yellow rectangle in all that white is entirely sufficient. Beneath the frame, a small card on the wall reads, "Untitled, House with Ambitious Smoke, Anonymous, felt tip on adhesive note, found in the margin of a planning committee agenda, date unknown. You can look at it for as long as you like." There is no prescribed amount of time for looking at things in the gallery of discarded doodles. Edith Voss has views on this. Her views are that looking at things takes as long as it takes, and that the main enemy of properly looking at something is the feeling that you should have finished looking at it already and moved on to the next thing. This feeling, in her experience, is responsible for more unhappiness than most people account for. The gallery's unofficial policy is that you are done looking at something when you are done looking at it, and not before. So look, if you like, or let your gaze go soft and just receive it. The yellow square, the slightly listing windows, the chimney's 3 spirals with their honest trailing off, the frame's white space around everything, like a quiet. There is no hurry. The gallery doesn't close. Edith appears at the far end of the room and walks back toward the entrance, not looking at anything now, the rounds completed, her hands in her cardigan pockets. She passes the bench without comment. She has a policy of not initiating conversation with visitors in the first 10 minutes, which she considers the adjustment period, the time required for a person to shift from the pace of outside to the pace of inside, which are very different paces, and which cannot be hurried by talking at people. She goes through a door at the side of the room that you hadn't noticed before. There is a brief sound of a kettle being filled. You are, for a moment, alone in the gallery. The spotlights hum their almost inaudible hum. The pale floor holds your feet. The off-white walls hold their collection. The blue ballpoint horse with its 5th leg and its hat, the post-it house with its spiraling smoke, and further along the room, more pieces, more small frames in their pools of warm light, more things drawn by people in the margins of other things, in the blank spaces of envelopes and receipts, and the backs of meeting agendas, drawn without intention to keep, without audience in mind, without the self-consciousness that attaches to making something on purpose. These are the drawings that happen the way thoughts happen, without planning, in the gaps of other things, because the hand wanted to move, and there was a pen nearby, and a surface available, and so a horse with a hat, and so a house with ambitious smoke, and so this long, low, amber-lit room, and the bench you are sitting on, and the quiet that has been accumulating around you since you walked through the door, a quiet that is not absence, but presence, the specific presence of a place that was made for looking at small things carefully, which turns out, when you are in one, to be exactly what you needed. Your breath has slowed. You may not have noticed, but it has, 2 or 3 breaths slower per minute than when you came in, which sounds modest, but is not. Slower breathing is a direction, and you are moving in it. From behind the side door, the soft sound of a teaspoon on the rim of a mug. Once, twice, the small percussion of an evening being prepared. The spotlights hold their warm light on their small islands. The house with its smoke sits in its frame. You are here. That is enough for now. Edith returns with 2 mugs. She sets one on the bench beside you without asking if you want it, because in her experience, people in galleries at this hour always want tea, and stopping to ask creates a conversational obligation that neither party particularly needs. The mug is plain white with a small chip on the handle that has been there long enough to be considered a feature. The tea is the color of a well-used paper bag. She sits at the far end of the bench with her own mug and looks at the wall opposite. Not at you, in the companionable way of someone who has spent enough time alone to have become genuinely comfortable with other people's silences. The tea is warm in your hands. Hold it, if you like. You don't have to drink it. The warmth is the main thing. The piece directly opposite the bench is larger than the others. Not large by the standards of actual art, but large by the standards of this collection, which means it is approximately A4, unframed, mounted directly on the wall with 4 small pins at the corners. It is a drawing of an octopus. The octopus has been drawn in pencil on what appears to be printer paper, the standard 80 grams per square meter variety that offices buy in reams and which passes through hands and machines all day without anyone thinking of it as a surface for anything. Someone thought of it as a surface for this. The octopus is rendered with a level of anatomical detail that suggests the artist either knew a great deal about octopuses or felt strongly that they should, and the detail increases steadily toward the center of the animal and becomes considerably more impressionistic toward the tentacle tips, which spiral off in directions that real octopus tentacles probably don't go, but which feel nonetheless correct. Each tentacle ends differently. One curls into a neat spiral, the line clean and confident. One simply stops mid-extension, as though the pencil lifted and the artist decided that was enough tentacle for now. One becomes, near its end, a series of small repeated loops that are either suckers or a loss of focus or both. One tentacle is significantly shorter than the others, which could be artistic choice, or could be that the paper ended there. There is no way to know, and this turns out not to matter. The octopus's eye, there is only one visible in profile, is a circle with a smaller circle inside it, and inside that a very small dot, and the dot has been pressed with enough intention that it has slightly dented the paper, which gives it, under the spotlight, a tiny shadow, which gives the eye an expression it was perhaps not designed to have. It looks mildly like it is thinking about something. The card on the wall beneath it reads, Untitled, Octopus, Anonymous, pencil on printer paper, found folded in quarters in the drawer of a rented office desk, Edinburgh, 2021. The tentacles bother some people, Edith says, from her end of the bench. She is not looking at you. She is looking at the octopus. They want them to match, Even numbers of things should match, apparently. Biological accuracy, someone said once. She drinks her tea. I told him the octopus didn't seem to mind. She says this without particular humor, in the tone of someone reporting a fact that happens to be mildly funny, but does not require any assistance from her in order to be so. Then she is quiet again, and the gallery is quiet, and the octopus continues not minding about its tentacles under the warm light of its spotlight. Your hands are warm around the mug. The bench is solid beneath you, the wood familiar now in the way that surfaces become familiar quickly when the body decides it is staying a while. Your back has found its position against the air, not leaning on anything, just upright enough to be comfortable, the spine doing its job without drama. Your legs are heavy in your lap or extended in front of you wherever they've settled. The spotlights make their small hum. There is no other sound for a moment except Edith's tea and the occasional soft adjustment of the building around you. A tick of metal somewhere in the ceiling. The almost inaudible suggestion of the world outside going about its business at a distance that feels, from in here, quite manageable. From in here, most things feel manageable. This is one of the things Edith Voss understood when she first conceived of the gallery, sitting at her kitchen table in 2009 with a collection of doodles she'd found on the floor of a public library and no clear plan for what to do with them. She understood that the problem with the world was not that it was too large or too difficult, but that it presented everything at the same scale. The serious things and the trivial things all arriving with the same urgency, the same volume, the same demand for immediate attention. A gallery of small accidental drawings, she thought, might offer a corrective, a place where the scale was different, where a penciled octopus on printer paper could receive the same quality of attention as anything else, and where anything else was for the duration, not here. She did not write any of this down. She just found a room and put the drawings up and opened the door. That was 16 years ago. The cat flap incident was in 2017. Move along the wall if you want to. The bench is here if you want to return to it, and the tea will stay warm longer than you'd expect. Something about the mugs, Edith says, though she has never elaborated on this, and it seems unwise to press her. The floor takes your footsteps lightly. The spotlights shift their quality of light slightly as you move from one pool to the next, each one a slightly different temperature, a slightly different angle, so that each piece exists in its own distinct atmosphere rather than a continuous one. The next piece is 3 small drawings in a single long frame, presented horizontally. Left to right, a cat, a different cat, and what might be a cat but might also be a dog or a concept. All 3 are drawn in the same hand, a rollerball pen, the lines slightly thicker where the pen paused and thinner where it moved quickly, which makes the drawings a kind of record of the speed of their own making. The first cat was made slowly, with some deliberation, the second more quickly, the third very quickly indeed, possibly under time pressure, possibly simply because by the third cat, The hand knew what it was doing and wanted to get there faster. The first cat is sitting. It has whiskers of unequal length and an expression of patient dissatisfaction, which is accurate. The second cat is also sitting, but has been given a collar with what appears to be a bell, the bell rendered as a small circle with a tiny line beneath it, a typographic bell essentially, a bell reduced to its most communicable form. The third is in motion, or it intends to be. The legs are involved in something. The tail is a single decisive line moving upward and to the right. Whether it is running towards something or away from something, or simply crossing a room is not clear and is, the wall card suggests, beside the point. 3 studies in cat or similar, anonymous, rollerball on the reverse of a printed boarding pass, London Heathrow to Amsterdam, 2018. Someone drew these on a plane. Think about that for a moment, or don't. But if you do, consider what it means that somewhere over the North Sea at 37,000 feet, in the specific suspended state of being between 2 places and belonging temporarily to neither, someone took out a pen and drew 3 cats on the back of their boarding pass, not because they were asked to, not for anyone, just because there was a pen and a surface and the mild, directionless energy of being in transit that needs somewhere to go. The third cat is still going wherever it was going. It will always be going there. The leg involvement will always be mid-motion. The tail will always be committed to its upward line. This is one of the minor consolations of drawings, that whatever they were at the moment they were made, they remain. The plane landed. The boarding pass was almost thrown away. But the cats persist in their long frame, in their individual pools of tilted light, going about their arrested business on the pale wall of a gallery that has no permanent address. Edith has finished her tea. She is standing now near the window at the far end of the room. There is one small window, high on the wall, through which the dark outside is visible as a rectangle of slightly lighter dark, the ambient light of the city above the roof line, a grey-blue that does not intrude so much as it confirms that outside still exists, which is reassuring without being distracting. She is looking at something on the wall near the window that you cannot quite see from here. She puts her glasses on. She takes them off. "This one's new," she says, though not to you specifically, to the room or to herself or to the piece, the kind of statement that doesn't require a response and would be slightly diminished by receiving one. You stay where you are. The 3 cats are to your left. Ahead, on the long wall, more frames in their warm islands of light. A drawing of a staircase that doesn't connect to anything. A series of interlocking circles that were either a mathematical exercise or a hypnotic one. A small, careful rendering of a hand, drawn from life. The fingers slightly foreshortened the way fingers are when you draw your own hand, because you are looking at it straight on, and the perspective is counterintuitive, and you draw it wrong and then correct it, and the correction is slightly different from the original intention, and the result is a hand that is both observed and slightly imagined. It is a very good hand. the person who drew it was paying attention. Your eyes are moving more slowly now. This is something that happens in the gallery, Edith has observed, in most visitors after about 20 minutes. Not tiredness, exactly. Or not only tiredness, more a change in the quality of looking. The quick, darting attention that the eyes use outside, the constant peripheral surveillance that the street requires, the processing and assessing and moving on. All of that has been unwinding since you walked through the door. And what is left is something slower and more receptive. Eyes that are willing to stay on one thing. Eyes that have stopped asking what's next and are content with what's here. Of the page, milk, something beginning of the page. Milk, something beginning with B. A word that has been crossed out before it was finished. The staircase ascends from the lower right corner of the page and turns left at a landing and continues upward and out of the frame, past the edge of the paper, into wherever staircases go when the paper ends. Somewhere interesting, probably, or somewhere perfectly ordinary, which from a staircase that exists only on the back of a shopping list would be interesting enough. The spotlight holds it in its warm, amber circle. You look at it for a while. In the way it passes when you're not in the way it passes when you're not checking, which is to say, it passes, but without the usual commentary, without the small accumulating pressure of minutes being spent on something that may or may not be worth the spending. You are here. The staircase is here. The building settles around you both with its occasional small sounds, comfortable sounds, sounds that mean nothing except that the place is solid and the night is doing what the night does, and everything in the room is, for now, exactly where it should be. From the far end of the gallery, quietly, without announcement, Edith turns off the light near the window. The rectangle of grey-blue outside goes dark. The room rearranges its warmth around the remaining spotlights, each piece on the wall holding its amber glow, and the spaces between them deepen slightly. Your hands have gone still in your lap. Your shoulders are where they should be. The gallery of discarded doodles is quiet and warm and full of small things made by people who are thinking about something else, and you are in it, which is exactly where you are, and that turns out to be fine. More than fine. The gallery, it seems, is longer than it looked. This should perhaps not be surprising. The gallery of discarded doodles has never been straightforward about its dimensions. It appears in spaces that shouldn't be able to contain it, occupies gaps between buildings that a tape measure would describe as insufficient, and has on at least one occasion contained more visitors than the floor plan could theoretically support without anyone noticing or complaining. Edith Voss, when asked about this, has said only that rooms are often larger than they appear to be from the outside, which is either a practical observation or a philosophical one, and possibly both. The far wall, which looked like a far wall, has a doorway in it. You notice this. It was not invisible before. It is a perfectly ordinary doorway, no door in the frame, just an opening in the plaster with a low lintel that someone has painted the same off-white as the walls, which is why it reads, at first glance, as wall. But the spotlight nearest to it throws just enough shadow into the recess to give it depth, and the depth, once noticed, becomes unmistakable. There is another room. Edith glances up from the side room as you pass the doorway. She says nothing. She has the expression of someone who was wondering when you'd notice. She goes back to her page. The floor beneath the lintel is the same pale wood, continuous, the boards running in the same direction as in the first room, so that the transition between the two spaces is marked only by the slight change in the air, cooler here, a degree or two, and the smell is different. Still pencil and paper, still that faint electrical quality, but underneath it, something else, something older. The particular smell of a room that has been accumulating paper for a long time. A deep, dry, library-adjacent smell that is not unpleasant but is serious. The smell of a room that means business about its contents. The second room is narrower than the first. The ceiling is lower. The spotlights here are smaller, mounted closer to the wall, and their light falls more steeply onto the pieces, so that the shadows they cast are more pronounced, each frame sitting in a small pool of amber with a more definite shadow beneath it, the wall around it more distinctly dim. The effect is more intimate than the first room, more like looking at something someone is showing you than looking at something on display. There are more pieces here. The first thing you see is a page covered entirely in one word. The hand is moving quickly, or the mind is the hand is moving quickly, or the mind is elsewhere, which in this case it clearly was, because the word is not a word anyone writes when they are paying attention. It is a word someone writes when the pen is moving and the meeting is long and the mind has uncoupled from the present and gone somewhere less structured. The word is elsewhere. Written perhaps 40 times in rows of 4, the letters of each iteration slightly different from the last. Rounder here, more angular there. The L sometimes tall and sometimes short. The E at the end sometimes closed and sometimes left open. A record of a mind drifting, written in its own drift, in the word that names it. Untitled, elsewhere, anonymous, ballpoint on ruled note paper, found in a conference room, date unknown. You stand in front of it for a while. The word in its 40 variations looks back at you, or looks in the direction you are standing, which at this hour is close enough to the same thing. Further along the wall, a series of faces. Not portraits. They are too quick for portraits, too unbothered by accuracy. They are the faces people draw when they are not drawing faces, just drawing the idea of a face, the minimal required components. 2 marks for eyes, a line or curve for a mouth, sometimes a nose, sometimes not. There are 11 of them on a long strip of paper that appears to have been torn from a roll, the kind of paper that comes at the end of cash register receipts, or from the rolls of plain paper that offices keep near printers for overflow jobs. The paper that exists in the margins of institutional life. 11 faces, none of them the same. For eyes, and a straight horizontal for eyes, and a straight horizontal for a mouth. A face that could be anything, resting, waiting, thinking, present in the room without being particularly engaged by it. Two of the faces are doing something harder to name. One has its mouth open, a simple oval, which could be speaking or surprised or singing or saying, "Oh." One has eyes that are asymmetrical, one higher than the other, which gives it an expression of mild skepticism, or mild curiosity, or mild something. Mild, certainly, whatever it is. The 11th face has no mouth at all. Whether this was a decision or a stopping point is not recorded. 11 faces, anonymous, ballpoint on receipt paper, found in a waiting room, 2020. You are moving slowly now. This is something the second room does. The lower ceiling and the narrower space and the more steeply angled lights create a pace. The way narrow streets create a pace. The way any space that requires a little more attention to navigate slows the body down and, following the body, the mind. You move from piece to piece without hurry, stopping where you stop, staying as long as you stay, and the floor takes your footsteps with the same quiet commentary as before. The soft and irregular voice of old wood doing its job. The walls here are hung more densely than in the first room. Not crowded, there is still space between the frames, still the off-white wall visible between each piece, still the principle of negative space maintained. But there are more drawings per meter of wall, more small things to find, and some of them are very small indeed. A thumbnail sketch, literally thumbnail-sized, of a figure on a bicycle, the whole thing no bigger than a postage stamp, mounted in a frame considerably larger than itself. The tiny drawing centered in all that white, with the confidence of something that knows its own scale and is comfortable with it. The bicycle figure is leaning forward. It is going somewhere with purpose. Where it is going is none of your business, and also, possibly, none of its own. There is a window at the end of this room too. Level, though there is no street visible level. Though there is no street visible through this one. Just the same grey-blue of the city's ambient light. The reflected glow of a place where people are still awake doing the things people do at this hour. The light comes through and falls at a shallow angle across the top of the far wall, catching the uppermost edges of the frames there, giving them a secondary cool light alongside the warm amber of the spotlights, so that the top third of the room has a slightly different quality than the lower part. Cooler, bluer, the quality of late-night sky, finding its way into an enclosed space. You stand under it for a moment. The cool light on the top of your head, the warm amber around you on the walls. It is, without being dramatic about it, a good place to stand. The piece on the wall directly beneath the window is different from the others. It is a map. Not a map of anywhere real, or not anywhere recognizably real, but drawn with the full conviction of someone who knew exactly what they were mapping. There are roads, or things functioning as roads, with the double-line shorthand that hands reach for automatically when they mean road. There are what might be buildings, rendered as small squares and rectangles with the same automatic confidence. Something that could be a river runs along the bottom third of the page in a single loose line that wobbles in the way rivers do when someone draws them from memory rather than reference, which is to say, it wobbles in exactly the right way. There is an X. The X is not at the end of anything in particular. It sits slightly left of center, not on a road, not inside a building, just placed, pressed into the paper with enough intention that the pencil made a small dent. Wherever the X is, the person who drew this knew what it meant, and that information did not make it onto the page and is now gone. Right, the city light from the window right. The city light from the window above does exactly this, and for a moment, the map and the groceries occupy the same space. Untitled, map with X, anonymous, ballpoint on receipt, found tucked into a library book, date unknown. Sit down. There is a chair here, just one, placed against the wall opposite the map. A plain wooden chair of no particular distinction. The kind of chair that exists in rooms, because rooms need somewhere to sit, and this chair was available. It has a slightly lower seat than you'd expect, which means that once you're in it, your legs extend in front of you, and your shoulders drop and your head rests back against the wall behind, which is cool and solid. And the angle of all this is approximately the angle of someone who is no longer making any particular effort. The map is in front of you. The city light falls across it from above. The spotlight holds it from below. It is a map that was pressed to paper by someone who has no idea, almost certainly, that their map is here, that it has been here for several years in a gallery with no permanent address, seen by a number of people who have stood or sat in front of it in the quiet of various late evenings and found something in it worth the standing or the sitting. The person was at a library. They had paper and something to mark with, or they found them the way you find things when you're waiting. They pressed their pen to the paper. They left it at the library. And here it is. Your eyes are soft. The blue-grey map on its white paper is a warm shape in the amber and city light of the second room, and the warmth of it and the shape of it are working without your assistance on whatever remains of the evening's tension, which is not much now. A last small residue, the thin film that always persists longest, the one behind the eyes, or across the shoulders, or in the particular set of the jaw, whichever place is yours. Let the chair have it. Let the cool wall have it. Tonight, in this room, or whatever room the tonight, in this room, or whatever room the gallery finds next, carry carefully from location to location in Edith's system of padded cases and tissue paper kept. Small thing, carefully kept. You are in a room full of them. Small things kept carefully by a compact woman in a good cardigan who found them in bins and bus stops and conference rooms and the drawers of rented desks and decided, without much fanfare, that they were worth the keeping. The horse in the first room with its hat, the octopus thinking, the cats mid-departure over the North Sea, the word elsewhere written 40 times by a mind that was already there. The 11 faces, one without a mouth, the hand, and you here, in the chair, in the narrower room, under the cool edge of the city's light, with the amber warm around you, and the pale wooden floor, and the smell of old paper, and the almost rain electricity of a room full of things made without intention to last, which lasted anyway, which are here, which are enough. Edith does not come into the second room. She knows it is occupied. The gallery tells her these things in its own way. A change in the quality of the silence, a particular stillness that a room acquires when someone in it has stopped moving and started drifting. She has felt it many times. She knows what it means and what it doesn't require from her, which is nothing, which is the continued turning of pages in the next room, the occasional small sound of the kettle, if the night is long, the steady and undemonstrative presence of someone who is awake so that you don't have to be. The spotlights hold their amber. The city light falls across the top of the room in its cool blue-gray. The map is on the wall. Your breath goes out, and the pause before it returns has become a place rather than an interval, a place you inhabit briefly, a place of no sound and no thought and no particular weight, a place that the breath finds its way back from on its own without being summoned. Out, pause, back. The chair holds you. The wall holds the chair. The building holds the room, this room and the first room and the side room, where Edith is, and all of them together in whatever space the gallery has found for itself tonight, whatever gap or corner or overlooked volume of the city that was. It turns out exactly the right size. There is always exactly the right size, somewhere. You found the door. You came in. You went further in. And here, in the further in place, in the narrow room with its steep angled lights and its map on the wall and the city's ambient glow along the ceiling, here is where the distance closes. Just the breath going out, and the pause, just the breath going out, and the pause extending, and the room staying exactly as it is as you move through it and past it into the dark that is not dark but full, not empty but held, not an ending but the long beginning of whatever the morning will be. The map is on the wall. The gallery doesn't close. Go.